Time now for our
Ted Cruz
rants.
becomes president, he can go back to Canada's citizen.
Good point.
There you go.
Dual citizenship. Rants and raves of the week, starting with you, Kelly.
Oh, well, I have a big rant for CNN mostly. This was raised by Media Matters, which is sort of monitors the media and stuff that's going on. This guy named Roger Stone, who worked for Donald Trump.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess he has a consulting firm or whatever. That's fine. He's clearly a Trump ally. He doesn't work for him anymore. But on his Twitter account, he has been saying what can only be described as vile kinds of comments about some of the other CNN commentators, particularly directed at Ana Navarro, the Republican operations person who's often on there. He sent many tweets calling her an entitled diva rhymes with witch, then a borderline retarded, then dumber than dog, you fill in the last blank. For Roland Martin, who used to work at CNN, he called him a fat Negro and some other things we can't say here.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And they had him on 7 times, as Media Matters said. Now, I've seen him on MSNBC,
I know who he
too.
is, yeah.
So I was shocked because I've seen him on. I had no idea that he was doing all this stuff on the side. CNN finally came forward and said, maybe that we shouldn't have him.
Yeah.
So they're not having him on anymore.
Yeah, he's been around a lot.
And he claims, because he wrote a book about Clinton's war on women, that this is Soviet-style censorship.
Of course.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, right. All right, Dan.
I have a rave for Margaret Sullivan, who has been the public editor of the New York Times for nearly the past 4 years. For those of you who don't know what a public editor is, she's the head of the Internal Affairs Division. She's stepping down a little bit early
she
to
was
take
really
a
good.
position as media columnist for the Washington Post.
Oh.
She's going to be terrific. I would say that of the public editors the Times has had, she has been
best.
notably better than the rest of
Tough.
them, and she's leaving some very big shoes to fill. Not just tough, but much more engaged with the public than
Yep.
her predecessors were.
But I mean, she dared to really say things, and I think
Yes.
sometimes it's hard being inside there and being critical of reporters or editors or whoever. Tom.
I guess it's a rant, but in some ways it's a warning that I don't think has gotten as much attention as it might have, because Trump hasn't brought it up yet. But it's the Chinese agency that oversees the internet. Essentially, it came out with a set of rules, take effect on March 10th, that said that no company that is not 100% Chinese news can, in effect, use the internet inside China. And that means things like Reuters, the New York Times, Dow Jones, any agency that otherwise would put out what we consider news or information, they will be totally blocked from disseminating information inside China. And as for Chinese news organizations that use the internet in China, they put out a code of conduct in which they prohibit such things. I'll just read you a few. Anything that may harm national unity, harm national honor, undermine or spread rumors, disturb social order, insult or slander others, endanger social morality. Believe me, if that was in the U.S., we wouldn't have a Fox
Yeah,
News
what else
or
is on the internet,
TMZ
right?
or all that
Yeah,
kind
right.
of thing.
About the open sewer.
So it is really, and I don't want to be too light about this, a huge backward
Well, they've been
movement about
threatening this for a
openness.
while.
What I really wonder is there are literally hundreds of thousands of Chinese students studying here in the United States. What they're absorbing here with our freedoms, how they then turn around, go back to China and operate in a system like this, I think is be very interesting to watch.
All right, John.
I have a rant for the Denver Post, a major newspaper that has, unfortunately, like many papers, been cutting. And they've now cut the editorial page staff to the point where there will be numerous days each week in which there is no editorial in the Denver Post. Now, you know, maybe people won't go running into the streets screaming in horror, but I think that's a real loss. And in fact, I can't think of too many reasons for a newspaper to exist other than to have a strong, measured, informed voice in the community that in turn prompts debate, holds people accountable, and that can often supplement the news coverage in that way or react to it. Bad move, I'd say.
Just a financial thing?
What do you? Yeah, and what do you want a newspaper for if not in part that?
Yeah, exactly. Good point. All right, well, I have a rave tonight for Washington Post editor Marty Baron, who is going to be at the Dolby Theater at the Oscars this weekend with all the people who worked on the Spotlight movie, the actors, of course, and all the people who were portrayed, you know, from Mike Resendez and Ben Bradley, they're all going to be out there. But he
Sasha
wrote a
Pfeiffer.
really, Sasha Pfeiffer, he wrote a really thoughtful, lengthy piece in the Washington Post this week about the experience. And he said, I thought about the long ago work that led to the movie and how its impact would now be magnified. I thought about how the public might now see journalism as necessary. And I thought about the oddity of this whole scene in which I had a part, how the saddening subject of sexual abuse had arrived at this bizarre intersection with celebrity, paparazzi, and the red carpet interviews. It was just a really, really thoughtful piece. And I'm rooting for the hometown team, I have to tell you. Maybe a writing award at the very least.
It's the only
Very
one I
good.
saw. I hope they win.